guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be doing another Stephen King book / movie review, and I've done several of these on my channel at this point, so I will have my playlist linked down below in case anyone is interested. But this one is going to be slightly different from how I would normally do these. And how I would normally go about doing these reviews is that I would briefly talk about the book, then I would jump straight into spoilers over the movie and kind of do a comparison over the differences between the movie and the book. And because I chose a short story collection and some of those short stories have been adapted into some movies, I've decided to keep this one spoiler free because since they have turned some of those short stories into movies, of course, there's a lot that has changed. One, we don't have time to go over all of those changes because I had to watch 5 movies. And two, like I just said, there's a lot that has changed because a lot of these short stories are only a couple of pages long. So in order to turn a couple of pages into a 90-minute movie, of course, they had to add a whole bunch of stuff into those movies. So I would be sitting here forever trying to point out everything that's different. We don't have time for that. So I'm just going to keep this very spoiler free and just kind of briefly, go over those movies and just kind of tell you guys what was adapted. This is going to be, kind of short and sweet. So the format of how we're going to do this one is I'm going to kind of briefly talk about the short stories and what you guys can expect for those and give you my rating and which ones I enjoyed from that short story collection. And then I'll tell you guys from that short story collection what was adapted, and I kind of have some other things to talk about, and then I'll just give you guys my overall thoughts, and then we'll be done. So we'll go ahead and jump into the review. So the short story collection that I chose to review is A Night Shift. And this was, I think, published back in 1978. And this is actually my first short story collection that I have read by Stephen King. I've read another short story by Stephen King, but this is my actual completed short story collection that I've read. And this is obviously a horror-filled short story collection. There's a nice variety within this short story collection. So you have things from viruses, vampires, serial killers, rats. You have topics about grief. You have possessions. So there's a lot going on within this short story collection. 2 of the stories deal with his past book, Salem's Lot. One of them has to do with his other work, The Stand. I think some of these short stories in here should ring a bell to people because they are pretty popular. One of them being Children of the Corn. Another one that might ring a bell to people would be, or at least it rang a bell to me, was The Graveyard Shift. Maybe The Mangler might ring a bell to some people. I'm not sure. I ended up rating this one a 3 stars. I thought it was fine. It's about 20 short stories in this book, and I liked about half of them. Some of my favorites would include The Boogeyman. I think that title is self-explanatory. Another one would be The Lawnmower Man. That one is about this guy who needed help mowing his lawn, so he hired a lawn service, and he ended up getting this very eccentric lawnmower man to come and mow his lawn. Then we had one that was called I Know What You Need. This girl started dating this guy who just mysteriously always knew what she needed. There was another one that was titled The Last Rung on the Ladder, which was about this brother and sister, and something really tragic happened in their past. This is one of the ones I would say that kind of dealt more on the grief. This one isn't one that was more on the horror side, but that one really kind of touched me. So I enjoyed that one. And there are some other ones that I enjoyed, but I'll talk about those more when we get into the film adaptations. but it's a nice variety of stories. Now, there were some in there where I just didn't understand what King was trying to do. I didn't understand the point. There were some in there that were so short that maybe if he would have added an extra page or two, I can get on board with the story. But there was just not enough to even try to grasp what the story was, what direction the story was trying to go in. Like, one of my biggest complaints with this was I just didn't get the horror from this. I am always trying to understand how King is labeled as like one of the best horror writers of our time, and I'm still slowly making my way through like his works, and there are books that I have read from his that I really enjoy, but I've yet to be like scared, maybe unsettled from some of his stuff, but definitely not scared. I'm definitely not getting like the horror. And I don't know if that has to do with maybe seeing a lot of his works be adapted first, seeing a lot of the movies before I've read the books. Maybe that has a lot to do with why I'm not feeling, the horror that I'm wanting from his stuff. It's kind of disappointing sometimes when I pick up his work and I'm just not getting the horror that I'm looking for. But also too, horror is very subjective. So what I feel should be scary could be totally different from what someone else feels should be scary. And that could also be said from this. So I'm, saying that it's not scary, but someone else could very well be like, this is the scariest thing they've ever read. To each their own. But I just did not feel that way. Jumping into the adaptations. So there were 5 stories that were made into adaptations. Some of those were made into movies. Some of them were made into TV adaptations. I did not watch any of the TV adaptations time. I did not have time to sit around and try to find these TV adaptations and then watch them. So I decided to just only focus on the movie adaptations. These were very interesting. These were all made in like the late 80s, early 90s. So these were very interesting. So the first one that I started off with was Cat's Eye, that was made in 1985. And this one was like an anthology series. So technically it took 2 of his short story collections and they were adapted into like short, like little movies made into like one movie, but then they also added in like another movie. So they took Quitters Inc., which is one of the short stories. They also took The Ledge, which is one of his short stories. And then they added in this other like short story called The General. And one of the characters that is in Quitters Inc. and The General, she plays a daughter, is good old Drew Barrymore. You are not familiar, she also plays the main girl in Firestarter. But in Quitters Inc., in this one, we are following this man as he went to this place where he is trying to quit smoking. And then in The Ledge, we are following this man and we learn that he had an affair with like this mobster's wife. And so this mobster made him climb the ledge at this apartment building on like the 40th floor. And so that was interesting. And then, like I said, The General is not one of Stephen King's stories, but in this one, it's about the daughter gets like this cat as a pet, and the cat is trying to chase away this like troll that is trying to, I think, like steal the breath from the little girl. Very weird story. But the thing that's like tying all of these stories together is the cat. The cat, hence the name Cat's Eye. The cat shows up in each one of the stories and plays a big part in each one of the stories. Now, Quitters Inc. wasn't really one of my favorite stories in this short story collection. I was kind of like on the fence about whether or not I liked it. It was fine. But The Ledge, I actually really liked that. I liked that story. It was one of my favorites. So Cat's Eye, it was pretty enjoyable. That last story though, The General, although it has nothing to do with Stephen King, it was cheesy, but it was really entertaining. So if you guys check out Cat's Eye, if you've never seen it, I would definitely check this one, check this out, because overall the cheese is there. But this movie was pretty entertaining, especially for something that came out in 1985. I thought it was pretty entertaining. Okay, so then the next one that I watched was The Children of the Corn, which came out in 1984. Now, this was a short story that I was super excited about because in my mind, I remember like watching Children of the Corn when I was younger and being like terrified of this movie. So when I found out that Children of the Corn was in this short story collection, I was like, okay, I cannot wait to get to this one because I know this is gonna scare me. I'm so excited for it. It didn't scare me. It did not scare me. So I was a little disappointed by the short story. So then I was like, well, I don't really remember the movie. So then I was like, well, maybe the movie's gonna scare me because I remember it scaring me back then. The movie didn't scare me either. I do not remember this movie. But then I had to look this up because there are 10 Children of the Corns. And at first I told myself, well, Ty, you're gonna watch all 10 of these. After I watched this first one, I said, no, Ty, you're not gonna watch all 10 of these. I cannot sit through 10 of these. So there are 10 Children of the Corns. The first one I looked up, it's the only one that made it to the movies. The rest of the ones were like straight to video, as they should be after watching this first one. So there was like a remake because of course we have to like do remakes of Stephen King movies. So there's like a remake that was done in 2009, and then they're making like a prequel, or they made a prequel in 2020. Okay. But I don't think that one, if I remember correctly, I think that one was actually supposed to come out in theaters, but I think because of COVID, it didn't, or it's getting like a later release or something or other. But whatever the reason, I will not, will not, don't care, won't be watching it. But also too, if you look up a lot of these Children of the Corn, a lot of like famous stars played in these movies. It's like a lot of their starting points. Like if you want to start in Hollywood, jump in one of these Children of the Corns and it'll get you there. I guess. But Children of the Corn is supposed to be about this couple that is making this cross-country trip. They end up hitting this little boy that runs out from a cornfield. They end up getting stuck in this town, and these kids end up like attacking them, and it has a lot to do with like the Bible, and like these kids are like possessed from like the corn, I guess. I don't know. It's weird because I still don't really understand. Even from reading it and watching it, I don't get it. But it's not scary. But that's Children of the Corn, and I didn't like it. Didn't like the story and didn't like the movie, and it's not scary. And the movie's kind of funny, but not funny in a good way. So then the next up that we have is The Mangler. And The Mangler was made in 1995. And this one is about this like ironing machine in this like laundry facility that is demon possessed and is starting to kill the women that work at this laundry facility. There you go. And this is one of the stories that I actually really enjoyed. This was the first story that I got to that I actually enjoyed. I had to get through like 4 or 5 stories before I hit this one, because I almost DNF'd this collection before I hit this one, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed this movie. Again, it's pretty cheesy, pretty spot on with the short story. Yeah, it's a really cheesy it's a really cheesy movie. Again, it's one of those movies, if you don't have anything else to do and you just need something to watch, I would watch this. Is it scary? No, it's made in 1995. It looks like something that was made in 1995, but it was entertaining. And so then the next movie that I watched is called Maximum Overdrive, which was made in 1986. And this is based off of the short story that is called Trucks. I didn't like the short story Trucks. This is one of the short stories that I thought needed a little bit more. Maybe if it had a few extra pages, a little bit of extra explanation, maybe I would have liked that short story. But I actually enjoyed the movie, and this is one of the ones I actually recently just watched. And so in this one is one of the ones that is really different. Not really different, they added quite a bit more from what's in the short story collection. So I'm going to give you the synopsis from the short story collection. So in the short story collection, Trucks, what it's about is somehow the Trucks lost their mind, and they are killing these people that are stuck at a truck stop. And anytime the people have been trying to leave this truck stop, the trucks have been running them over and killing the people. And so Maximum Overdrive is about the same thing, but they obviously added a bit more. And I would highly check out that movie. My mom actually told me about this movie, and it's a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed that movie, and it's actually kind of scary. Now, that one is kind of scary if you think about it, because some stuff like that actually happened. I am not here for it. Nope. I'm not here for that at all. So if you have not seen that, I would definitely check that movie out. For that one, I liked the movie, didn't like the short story. And that one, I would definitely say, between the short story and the movie, those two are definitely kind of the most different. They have the same premise, but for the movie, they definitely had to add a whole bunch more as far as an explanation in regards to what exactly is going on, because we got none of that in the short story. And then the last movie that I watched is The Graveyard Shift, which came out in 1990. And this one is about this facility that has been overrun by rats. And there's a guy that is working there. He works the graveyard shift. And over the 4th of July holiday, he signed up to work extra shifts where they have been assigned to clean up the basement. And they're trying to figure out where these rats are coming from, and they find out where they're coming from. I think I did like the story. The movie was pretty spot on. There are a few differences, but not too far off. It's got a lot of cheese. It's a really cheesy movie. It was fine. So that's not one of those movies. It's kind of like one of those movies. It's fine like while you watch it, but it's definitely not one that I'd watch again. So it's like, if it comes on TV, you guys should check it out. But I don't think it's one of those ones that I would be like, ooh, you have to go watch The Graveyard Shift. No. So those were all of the adaptations that I watched. I actually have a really fun time watching these. That's why I do these, because I enjoy going back and watching like these older movies, because they're so entertaining, especially to see how far movies have come. But those are the short stories that have been adapted into movies. Now, there's one that I wanted to mention that I thought was really interesting, and that is The Lawnmower Man. Because there is a movie, and I'm pretty sure that you guys have probably heard of this, but there is a movie that's called The Lawnmower Man that has no association with Stephen King's short story, The Lawnmower Man. And Stephen King actually had to sue the people who made that movie, because I believe when the movie first came out, they had it to where it said like, Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man, and he sued them so that it no longer said that. And another fun fact that I found when I was doing a little research for this was that there was this like program, I guess you could call it, where it was called Dollar Baby, where Stephen King would allow students and like aspiring filmmakers to adapt his short stories for $1. King would essentially still like have the rights to these films, but they would get to make the adaptations. He would basically shelve them and they weren't produced for the public. And I guess it was just to give these students and filmmakers practice, but that was a thing that was happening. So yeah, I thought that was like a fun fact. But yeah, so that's Night Shift in a nutshell. Again, this is something that I gave a 3 stars overall. Like I said before, there is a variety within this short story collection. I enjoyed about half of these stories. I do think because there is a variety within here that if you do decide to pick this up, that there would be something I think in here that you would enjoy. If any of those movies sounded interesting to you, I would definitely check those out. So that is all that I have for you guys. Again, I will have my Stephen King playlist linked down below in case you guys are interested, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.